Before we begin the story, let us know where you're watching from by leaving a comment below. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the story, everyone. The door of the Bentley Continental opened, and a $3,000 English loafer stepped right into a can of blue paint. Sophia didn't even have time to yell, "Watch out!" The damage was done. The paint burst like fireworks across the sidewalk, splattering all over the navy suit pants of the best-dressed man she had seen in 3 months living on that corner in Charleston, South Carolina. And she couldn't hold it in. She laughed out loud. The kind of laugh that escapes when you know you've just witnessed something that's either going to turn into a great story or a lawsuit. The man looked down, then at her, then back at the blue stain, now forming a crooked heart on the side of his genuine leather shoe. "Seriously?" he muttered, more to himself than to her. Sophia bit her lip, trying to pull herself together, but it was too late. The laugh had already escaped, and now she had to deal with the consequences. "Sorry," she said, wiping her hands on her paint-stained apron. "But technically, you stepped on my paint, so shared blame." He raised an eyebrow. His expression was a mix of disbelief and something Sophia couldn't quite name. Curiosity, maybe, or quiet anger. "Shared blame," he repeated, his voice deep and controlled, as if he were testing the words before deciding if they made sense. "Yeah, 50/50. I left the can on the ground. You decided to use it as a doormat. Technically, that's mutual vandalism." The driver got out of the car, looking worried, but the man raised a hand, clearly meaning, "I'll handle this." That's when Sophia really looked at him, dark hair slicked back, a jawline that looked like it had been carved by someone obsessed with symmetry, eyes the color of black coffee, sharp, steady, the kind that made you feel seen and analyzed in 3 seconds flat. He was handsome, annoyingly handsome, and clearly used to getting what he wanted. "Are you trying to sell these?" he asked, pointing to the small street cart where Sophia displayed her paintings against a brick wall. There were 6 of them, all hand-painted, all signed with the initials S.L. in the bottom corner. Sophia crossed her arms. "Depends. Are you trying to buy one or just changing the subject so you don't have to admit you ruined my paint?" He didn't answer. He just walked up to the paintings, ignoring the blue stain spreading up his pant leg. Then he stopped, in front of the only painting Sophia had never managed to sell, the estate. It was a large canvas painted in shades of gray and aged gold. It showed an old colonial-style house with arched windows, a front yard overgrown with wisteria, and a stone fountain in the center. There was something melancholic about it, like the house was waiting for someone who would never return. "Where did you see this?" His voice was different now, lower, more personal. "I'm sorry?" Sophia asked. "This estate. Where did you see it?" She hesitated, not because she didn't know, but because no one had ever asked before. Most people just said something generic like, "That's beautiful," and walked away. "In my head," she said with a shrug, "I paint what I see in dreams or nightmares. Haven't decided which this one is yet." He stared at her for a long moment, the kind of silence that makes time slow down. Sophia felt something strange in her stomach. Not hunger, though. She hadn't eaten since breakfast. It was something else. Recognition? Maybe. "How much?" he asked, breaking the moment. "How much?" "What? The painting?" Sophia blinked, surprised. "You're serious?" "I never say anything I don't mean." Of course not, she thought. He probably was born with his arms crossed in that serious face. $400, she said, half expecting him to laugh. He didn't. He simply took out his wallet, counted $400 bills as if they were coupons, and handed them to her. Sophia stared at the money, suspicious. "You didn't even ask if I take cards, do you?" "No." "Then I did the right thing." She took the cash slowly, still unsure. "Okay, now I have to ask. Are you some kind of eccentric philanthropist or just someone with too much money who likes to spend it on random people on the street?" He almost smiled. "Almost. Neither. I just recognize value when I see it." "Oh, really?" Sophia tilted her head, studying him. "And what exactly did you see in that painting?" "Miss Ellis. Nathaniel Ellis." The name hit like a silent bomb. Sophia didn't react. At least, not on the outside. But inside, something clicked. Ellis. She'd heard that name before. "Let me guess," she said, folding her arms again. You own that fancy restaurant behind me, right? The Azalea House. No, but I do have a reservation there in 10 minutes. Oh, I see. So, you bought my painting as a good deed before dinner, like clearing your conscience. He looked at her again with that piercing gaze. Do you always talk like that, or just when someone buys something from you? Depends. Are you always this annoying, or only when you buy art from people on the street? This time he actually smiled briefly, but it was real, and Sophia hated how his smile was just as annoyingly handsome as the rest of him. Do you have a name? He asked. Sophia. Sophia Laurent. Sophia, he repeated as if memorizing it. Nice to meet you. He picked up the painting, turned, and walked toward the restaurant, followed by the driver carrying the canvas like it was a sacred relic. Sophia stood there on the sidewalk, $400 in hand, and a strange feeling in her chest. She had sold paintings before, many, but none had ever felt this odd or this important. As Nathaniel Ellis disappeared through the glass doors of the Azalea House, Sophia looked at her empty cart, at the paint cans scattered on the ground, and at the blue stain still glistening on the sidewalk under the streetlight. Then, very softly, she whispered to herself, "What on earth just happened?" But deep down, she already knew. That man hadn't bought the painting by chance. He'd recognized something in it. And for the first time in months, Sophia felt something she hadn't felt since she'd lost everything. Hope. Or maybe just the illusion of it, because men like Nathaniel Ellis didn't come back to sidewalks like hers. They only passed by and forgot. The envelope was white, thick, expensive, and it had his name written in gold calligraphy that probably cost more than a normal person's monthly salary. Nathaniel Ellis held the invitation between his fingers as if it were a court summons, because in a way that's exactly what it was. Victoria Hargrove and Benjamin Ellis invite you to celebrate their engagement. He read the line 3 times. Each time it hurt a little less, or maybe he was just going numb. The waiter appeared beside the table with a professional smile and a bottle of red wine. Nathaniel didn't even remember ordering. "Shall I pour for you, Mr. Ellis?" "Fill it to the brim," Nathaniel muttered, dropping the invitation on the table as if it burned. The waiter poured the wine with the elegance of someone who had done it for 20 years, but couldn't quite hide his curiosity when he saw the names printed on the paper. "Oh, the Ellis Hargrove engagement," he said too casually. "Everyone's talking about it. It's going to be at the Grove Estate, right? That mansion with the Italian marble fountain. They say there'll be over 300 guests." Nathaniel took a long sip of wine. "Fascinating. You'll be going, right, sir?" "Me?" "Yes, sir. Are you attending alone or—" The question hung in the air like a polite sucker punch. Alone? Of course, he was going alone because Victoria had traded him for his cousin Benjamin, the rival partner who spent more time trying to sabotage the family business than helping it grow. And now, not only were they together, they were getting married in front of everyone, in front of Charleston's elite, in front of the Ellis Enterprises board, in front of him. "I haven't decided yet," Nathaniel said curtly. The waiter nodded, but Nathaniel caught the look, that thin veil of pity dressed as politeness. "I understand, sir. Well, just let me know if you need anything." When the waiter left, Nathaniel kept staring at the invitation. The paper seemed to scream silently. "You lost. He won, and everyone will be there to see it." He picked up his phone, 3 unread messages. "Benjamin, hope you'll come, cousin. It would be a shame if you missed the event of the year. Nathaniel, please attend. The family needs to show unity. You know how the board is. I know it's awkward, but it would mean a lot to me if you came. After all, we're still friends, right? Friends." He almost threw the phone at the wall, but then somewhere deep inside, an annoying little voice whispered, "If you don't show up, they win. If you show up alone, they win. But if you show up with someone." Nathaniel paused, looked at the invitation, looked at the wine, and then, without thinking, which was unusual for him, he pushed back his chair and left the restaurant. The sidewalk was darker now. The streetlights flickered weakly, and the cool October wind carried the smell of coming rain. Sophia was still there, putting the last paint cans into a dented cardboard box. The makeshift cart was already folded, and she was wearing an oversized hoodie with a faded band logo Nathaniel didn't recognize. She saw him before he said anything. "Did you forget something?" she asked, still organizing her things. "Because if you're here to complain about the stain on your shoe, I can offer you a discount on your next purchase. I have a proposal for you." Sophia stopped, turned slowly, raising one eyebrow. Okay, that sounds extremely suspicious, like this is going to go wrong level of suspicious. Nathaniel crossed his arms. It's nothing illegal. Oh, great start. Very reassuring. He took a deep breath. This was ridiculous. He knew it was ridiculous, but the image of Benjamin and Victoria, smiling at the altar while he sat alone in the back row, was worse than any temporary embarrassment. I need someone to go with me to an event, he said plainly. Sophia blinked. Like an actual event with fancy people and expensive champagne. Exactly. And you're asking me this because what? You ran out of options on dating apps? Because you have nothing to lose, Nathaniel replied bluntly. And I need someone completely disconnected from my world. She stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly she started to laugh. Not a polite laugh, a genuine one. The kind that bends you over. Are you serious? She managed between laughs. Where exactly do you want to take me? To my ex-fiancé's engagement party. The laughter stopped. Oh, with my cousin. Oh, and I need someone by my side so I don't look like a total loser. Sophia was silent for a few seconds. Then she tilted her head, eyes glinting with something between amusement and disbelief. So, you want me to be your what? Fake girlfriend, last minute plus one social shield. Social experiment, Nathaniel corrected. Oh, sure, totally different. He sighed. Look, I know it sounds strange. Strange? She interrupted. This goes way past strange, straight into bad movie plot, but like the kind I'd totally watch anyway. Nathaniel almost smiled. So, do you accept? Sophia crossed her arms, studying him. The wind messed up her dark hair, and Nathaniel realized she was unlike anyone he'd ever met. Not because she was poor, not because she was an artist, but because she didn't pretend. How much are you paying? She asked practically. $1,500. Half now, half later. Wow. Okay. And what do I have to wear? Homeless chic or classic streetwear? He couldn't help it. He laughed quietly but genuinely. I'll take care of the outfit. Of course you will, Sophia muttered, rolling her eyes. And let me guess, you'll also want to teach me how to walk, talk, and breathe properly, right? If necessary. She let out a long, dramatic sigh. Fine, I'll do it, but only because I need the money. And honestly, I'm dying to see what kind of circus rich people live in. Nathaniel extended his hand. Deal. Sophia shook it firmly, and for a second, they just stood there under the dim streetlight, sealing the most absurd agreement either of them had ever made. One thing, Sophia said, letting go of his hand. If this blows up in my face, I'm painting you as the villain in all my next works. Fair enough. She smiled, a crooked, daring smile, and Nathaniel realized too late that he had just made the worst or best decision of his life, because Sophia Laurent wasn't just any companion. She was a ticking time bomb with a paintbrush. Sophia thought taking care of the outfit meant going to a store, picking out a dress, and that's it. She didn't expect to be dragged into a mansion that looked straight out of a Downton Abbey episode with an actual butler at the door and a crystal chandelier worth more than everything she'd ever owned. You live here? She asked, looking around while Nathaniel closed the door behind them. Technically, yes, he replied, taking off his jacket and tossing it onto an upholstered chair that was probably an antique, but I spend most of my time at the office. Of course, because this place must be so uncomfortable, Sophia said sarcastically, running a finger across a side table that shone like a mirror. Poor you. He ignored the comment. We have 48 hours, he said, turning to her with that CEO stance that probably scared board members. The event, Saturday night. Today's Thursday. So, let's get started. Sophia blinked. Get started? On what exactly? Your training? She let out an incredulous laugh. My training, man. I'm not a dog, and you're not the dog whisperer. Nathaniel crossed his arms. Do you know how to behave at a charity gala? I know how to behave anywhere. Just don't spit on the floor or swear at anyone, right? That's not exactly how it works. Then explain it to me, Professor. He took a deep breath like he was preparing for battle. First, posture. You need to stand tall, shoulders back, chin slightly up, as if you belong there. Sophia tried. She straightened her back, lifted her chin, and ended up looking like a stiff flamingo. Like this? She asked, trying not to laugh. Nathaniel closed his eyes for a second. No, you look like you swallowed a coat hanger. Great feedback. Very helpful. He stepped closer, adjusting her shoulders with his hands. The touch was quick, professional, but Sophia felt it. "Relax," he said, his voice lower now. "You don't have to force it, just trust." She looked at him. Up close, his eyes had tiny golden flecks she hadn't noticed before. "Trust," she repeated, her voice rougher than she meant. "Like trust that you won't let me embarrass myself." "Exactly." For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Sophia stepped back, breaking the moment. "All right, what's the next lesson?" The etiquette lesson took place in the dining room. Nathaniel set crystal glasses, silver cutlery, and porcelain plates on the table like he was building a minefield. "Salad fork, appetizer fork, main course fork," he explained, pointing to each one. "Butter knife, steak knife, dessert spoon." Sophia raised her hand. "Question. Go ahead. Why on earth does anyone need 3 forks? Doesn't the food go in your mouth the same way with any of them?" Nathaniel sighed. "It's about etiquette, tradition, respect. It's about making life harder for no reason," Sophia corrected, grabbing the salad fork and pretending it was a microphone. "Attention, ladies and gentlemen. And today we'll be using fork number 3 because we're fancy." He almost smiled. "Almost. You need to take this seriously." "I am taking it seriously." "Seriously, ridiculous." Nathaniel leaned across the table, his eyes locked on hers. "Sophia, these people will judge you for everything. The way you hold a glass, the way you cut your steak. If you take one wrong step, they'll tear you apart." His tone changed, and Sophia realized this wasn't just about manners. It was about survival. "Okay," she said, more serious now. "I get it. Teach me. I'll try to take it seriously this time." He nodded. And for the first time since they'd met, Sophia saw something in his eyes that looked like gratitude. The dance lesson was where things went off track. Nathaniel turned on some classical music. Something instrumental, elegant, the kind that plays at rich people's weddings. "Basic waltz," he said, holding out his hand. "I lead, you follow." Sophia looked at his hand like it was a trap. "I don't know how to waltz." "That's why we're practicing." She sighed and placed her hand in his. His other hand rested on her waist, firm but respectful. Suddenly, the space between them felt too small. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, he counted, guiding her across the floor. Sophia stepped on his foot. "Oops. It's fine. Try again." She stepped on him again, this time on purpose. "Sophia, sorry, just a system bug." Rebooting. He stopped dancing and stared at her. "You're doing it on purpose." "Maybe," she said with a grin. "Or maybe I'm just terrible at this." "You're not terrible. You're just not trying." "And why should I?" Sophia shot back, her voice sharper than she meant to pretend I'm someone else. "To fit the mold of your ex." Nathaniel went silent, and Sophia realized too late that she'd hit the target. "Every little thing you teach me," she continued softer now. "Every do this, every don't do that. It's about her, isn't it? About what she would have done, about who she was." He let go of her waist. "That's not what this is about." "Then what is it about?" "It's about not letting them win," Nathaniel said tightly. "About showing them I don't need them, that I can move on." Sophia looked into his eyes, and for the first time, she saw something beyond the composed CEO. She saw pain. "All right," she said gently. "I'll try. For real this time," he nodded. And when they started dancing again, Sophia didn't step on his foot anymore. This time, she let him lead. And when the music ended, neither of them let go right away because something had changed, and they both knew it. That night, while Sophia slept in the guest room, Nathaniel stayed awake in the library, staring at the framed photo on his desk. Victoria smiling, perfect blonde hair, flawless white dress. He put the photo in the drawer, and for the first time in months, he felt nothing as he did it. The next morning, a huge box arrived at the mansion. Sophia came down the stairs in a hoodie, hair messy, and found Nathaniel standing next to the box, as if it were about to explode. "What's this?" she asked. He looked at her, then slowly opened the lid. Inside, wrapped in white tissue paper, was the most beautiful dress Sophia had ever seen, and attached to it a note. "Wear this and don't be yourself." Sophia read the note 3 times, then as gently as possible crumpled it and tossed it in the trash. "Don't be yourself," she muttered, pulling the dress from the box. Who wrote this? Cinderella's stepmother. Nathaniel appeared in the doorway, already dressed in a perfect black tuxedo, hair slicked back and that posture that screamed, board meeting, not engagement party. It wasn't my idea, he said a little too quickly. Oh no, then whose? My mother's. Sophia froze, looked at him, then at the dress, then back at him. Your mother sent me a note telling me not to be myself. She meant be the best version of yourself. That's not what she wrote. I know. Sophia sighed, held the dress against her body, and turned to the mirror. It was beautiful, simple, yet elegant. A emerald green dress down to her ankles with a modest neckline and short sleeves. Nothing flashy, nothing that shouted, "Look at me." Exactly the kind of thing someone would wear to blend in. I'll wear it, Sophia said firmly. But not because of the note, and not because your mother said so. Nathaniel waited. I'll wear it because, honestly, it's gorgeous, and I deserve to wear something beautiful at least once in my life. He smiled. Really smiled this time. You do. The limousine glided through the streets of Charleston like a silent ship cutting calm waters. Sophia sat beside Nathaniel, her hands sweaty around the small borrowed clutch she was pretty sure cost more than her kidney. Her hair was tied in a low bun, not fancy, but neat. And around her neck, the only thing that was truly hers, a green glass pendant that had belonged to her grandmother. It wasn't expensive, it wasn't truly old, but it shimmered under the light like it was keeping secrets. You okay? Nathaniel asked, breaking the silence. Sophia looked at him. Define okay. Nervous. Terrified. Great. Me too. She let out a short laugh. Really? The great Nathaniel Ellis. Scared? I didn't say scared. I said terrified. It's different. How so? Scared is when you think something bad might happen. Terrified is when you're sure it will. Sophia turned toward him. Then why are you doing this? He was quiet for a moment, staring out the window, because quitting would be worse. And then the limousine stopped. The Grove Mansion was everything Sophia had imagined a movie mansion would be, only bigger and more intimidating. White columns gleamed under perfectly placed spotlights. A grand fountain sprayed water like a living sculpture, and at the entrance, a red carpet led to glass doors where dozens of people dressed like royalty walked in, smiling and laughing, greeting each other like movie stars. Sophia swallowed hard. There's still time to turn back, she whispered. There isn't, Nathaniel said, opening the door. Nightlight poured into the car. Then he held out his hand to her. Sophia looked at it, then at him, then at the glowing hall beyond. She took a deep breath. All right, let's get this over with. She placed her hand in his and stepped out of the limousine. And the murmuring began. Not loud, not immediate, but unmistakable. Heads turned, eyes moved from her shoes to her face, lips shifted into polite smiles that hid whispers. Who is she? Never seen her before. She's not on the list, is she? Sophia felt every word like invisible pins. Then Nathaniel squeezed her hand just once, quick and reassuring, and she remembered, I belong anywhere I decide to be. So, with the posture he had taught her, she lifted her chin and walked. The ballroom was massive. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling like constellations frozen in time. Round tables covered with white linen surrounded a central dance floor. And at the far end, on a stage decorated with white and gold flowers, a giant panel showed Victoria and Benjamin smiling like they just won the lottery. Sophia resisted the urge to roll her eyes. They look happy, she said dryly. They do, Nathaniel replied, voice tight. A woman approached, platinum hair, blood-red dress, and a smile as sharp as a knife. Nathaniel, she exclaimed, air-kissing beside his cheek. What a surprise to see you here, and with company. She looked at Sophia like someone examining a questionable piece of art. Sophia smiled back sweetly, dangerously sweet. Hi, sweetheart. Nice to meet you. I love your jewelry. It's vintage, right? The woman blinked. Vintage? Yeah, like old classic from another time. Nathaniel coughed. Sophia was almost sure he was holding back a laugh. Well, the woman said, clearly annoyed. Enjoy the party. And she walked away, her heels striking the floor harder than necessary. You just implied her jewelry was fake, Nathaniel murmured. I didn't imply, I suggested. Sophia, relax. She won't sue me for an offensive compliment. They kept walking. More looks, more whispers. Then a voice cut through the air like breaking glass. "Nathaniel." They stopped. Sophia turned. And there she was, Victoria Hargrove, blonde hair styled in perfect waves, a white dress with gold details, flawless makeup, a smile straight out of a toothpaste commercial. But her eyes had venom. "I'm so glad you came," Victoria said, her voice soft but loaded. "And you brought someone." She looked Sophia up and down, slowly, calculating. Sophia held her gaze. "Hi," she said, extending her hand. "Sophia Laurent. Nice to meet you." Victoria shook her hand with her fingertips as if touching something contaminated. "Unique charm," she said, letting go quickly. "How do you know Nathaniel?" "From the sidewalk," Sophia replied with a smile. Victoria blinked. "I'm sorry. I sell art. He bought one. We connected." The silence that followed was so heavy Sophia could almost hear it creak. Victoria smiled, but not with her eyes. "How interesting." Then she turned to Nathaniel. "I hope you're comfortable here. After all, we're still family, are we?" Nathaniel didn't answer, and Victoria walked away, her white dress sweeping the floor like an elegant ghost. Sophia exhaled. "She hates you," she whispered. "No," Nathaniel said quietly. "She underestimates me. And what about me?" He smiled slightly. She hasn't figured you out yet." Sophia was about to respond when the sound of a spoon tapping a glass echoed through the room. Benjamin Ellis stepped onto the stage, microphone in hand, wearing a broad fake smile. "Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here on this very special night." And Sophia noticed just by looking at Nathaniel's face that the war had only begun. Benjamin Ellis spoke like a man used to being heard. Loud, confident, and smiling like someone who had just won something he didn't deserve. And judging by the way Nathaniel gripped his champagne glass, he probably had. "I want to thank you all for celebrating this special moment with us," Benjamin went on, gesturing like a talk show host. "Victoria and I are incredibly happy and having our family, friends, and—" He paused, scanning the room until his eyes landed on Nathaniel. "Everyone here means the world to us." The emphasis on everyone felt like a punch disguised as a hug. Sophia could feel Nathaniel tense beside her. "But before we continue," Benjamin said, "Victoria would like to say a few words." Polite applause filled the hall as Victoria walked up to the stage with the grace of someone who'd practiced in the mirror for weeks. She held the microphone like a scepter. "Thank you, darling," she said, placing a perfectly delicate hand on Benjamin's arm. Then she turned to the crowd. "I just want to thank everyone for being here. I know some of you traveled from far away, others rearranged busy schedules, and some—" She paused, her eyes sliding straight to Sophia. "Came even though they weren't exactly expected." The room fell silent, that heavy kind of silence when everyone knows something is about to blow up. Sophia swallowed hard. Victoria smiled. "Sweet, poisonous. But that's all right. The truth is, not everyone is meant to belong in places like this. And that's not judgment. It's just reality." A few people laughed quietly, but enough to sting. Sophia felt her face grow warm. Her palms were sweating. Every instinct told her to leave, to not give that woman the satisfaction of seeing her crack. But then something clicked inside her, and she remembered who she was. Sophia Laurent didn't run. She painted over. So before Nathaniel could stop her, she took a step forward and spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. "You're right." The whole room turned to her. Victoria blinked, clearly not expecting a response. Sophia smiled, calm, confident. "Not everyone is meant to be in places like this," she said slowly. "Some of us are born to restore what others break." The silence burst into murmurs. Then someone laughed, then another, and another until half the room was hiding smiles behind polite coughs. Victoria turned red. Benjamin froze, and Nathaniel looked at Sophia like he was seeing her for the first time. "Well," Victoria said, her voice trembling slightly. "How witty." "Thank you, sweetheart," Sophia replied with a small nod. "I learned from the best." More laughter. Some people even clapped. And for one brief, glorious moment, Sophia felt like she'd won, but the victory lasted exactly 15 seconds. A woman with gray hair and an emerald green dress stood up from the main table, her eyes fixed on Sophia's neck. "That necklace?" she said sharply. "Where did you get that?" Sophia frowned. "Excuse me." The woman came closer, eyes narrowed as if examining a piece of evidence. "That necklace, it belongs to the Ellis collection." The entire ballroom went silent again. But this time, it was different. The kind of silence that comes before a public execution. Sophia instinctively reached for the necklace. "No, it doesn't. It was my grandmother's." "Impossible." The woman snapped, her voice rising. "I know that piece. It was stolen from the Ellis mansion 15 years ago. Venetian glass with a silver clasp. The artisan's signature is engraved on the back." Sophia felt the floor vanish beneath her feet. "I didn't steal it. My grandmother gave it to me before she died." "And where did your grandmother get it?" The woman practically spat. She worked for a family here in Charleston. They said it was a gift." "A gift?" the woman repeated with disdain. "How convenient." Benjamin stepped down from the stage, his smile replaced by a serious, calculating expression. "Maybe we should verify that," he said, looking straight at Sophia. "After all, if it really is the stolen piece, this becomes a legal matter." Sophia turned to Nathaniel, her eyes silently pleading for help, but he said nothing. He just stood there holding a glass of champagne, his expression impossible to read. Silence. He was silent. "Nathaniel," she whispered, her voice breaking. Nothing. And that's when Sophia understood. He wasn't going to defend her. Not in front of them. Not in front of his family. Not when it meant admitting he brought a thief to his ex's engagement party. He'd made his choice, and it wasn't her. "I think you'd better leave," Benjamin said, his voice cold. "Before this gets unpleasant." 2 security guards appeared like shadows, positioning themselves beside Sophia. She looked around. Every face once curious, even amused, was now hard, judgmental, cold. And Nathaniel remained silent. Sophia felt her eyes burn, but she refused to let the tears fall. Not here, not in front of them. With the last bit of dignity she had left, she unclasped the necklace slowly, carefully, and placed it in the woman's hand. "Keep it," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor, "if it's that important to you." Then, without looking back, without waiting for Nathaniel to say anything, because she already knew he wouldn't, Sophia crossed the ballroom. Her heels struck the marble floor like drums. No one spoke, no one laughed, no one clapped. They just watched her leave, and when the glass door closed behind her, the sound echoed through the room. Outside, the night was cold. The wind blew hard and tangling Sophia's hair and carrying the scent of coming rain. She stopped on the sidewalk, her hands shaking, her chest tight, and finally she let the tears fall. Not for the humiliation, not for the necklace, but for his silence, because in the end, it was the silence that hurt the most. Inside the ballroom, Nathaniel still held his champagne glass, and for the first time in his life, he didn't know what to do, because he had just let the only real person he knew be destroyed, and he had done nothing to stop it. Benjamin came closer, resting a hand on his shoulder with fake sympathy. "Relax, cousin, you made the right choice." But when Nathaniel looked toward the door Sophia had walked through, he realized something. He'd made the worst choice of his life. And maybe there was no way to fix it. Nathaniel set that champagne glass down on the nearest table so hard the crystal almost cracked. And he walked out. Benjamin called after him. Victoria said something. Someone tried to grab his arm, but he was already crossing the room, pushing open the glass door, his eyes searching the darkness of the night. And then he saw her. Sophia stood on the sidewalk, arms crossed, her body trembling, not from the cold, but from something much worse: anger, pain, disappointment. "Sophia," he called, his voice rougher than he intended. She didn't turn. "No. Let me explain." "No," she repeated louder this time. "You had your chance in there, and you chose to stay silent." Nathaniel stopped a few steps away from her, his hands in his pockets, the flawless tuxedo contrasting with the chaos inside him. "I didn't know what to do," he admitted. "Liar!" Sophia cut him off, finally turning toward him. Her eyes were red but dry. She had already cried. Now there was only coldness left. "You knew exactly what to do. Defend the person who brought you there. But you didn't because it was going to cost you something. And the great Nathaniel Ellis never loses anything, right? It's not like that. Then how is it?" He opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. Nothing came out. Sophia laughed, a short, humorless laugh that hurt more than any scream. "Yeah, exactly. The limousine pulled up at the entrance. The driver quickly got out and opened the back door. "I'll take you home," Nathaniel said. "I don't have a home," Sophia replied, her voice low but steady. "I have a rented room that smells like mold in an alley where I used to keep my paintings. And now, thanks to you, I don't even have the dignity to go back there without feeling ashamed." She got into the car, not because she wanted to, but because she had nowhere else to go. Nathaniel got in from the other side. The door closed, and the silence inside that confined space was deafening. The car started moving. The lights of the Grove mansion faded behind them, along with the music, the laughter, and everything Sophia had tried to pretend she belonged to. "I'm sorry," Nathaniel said at last. "For what?" Sophia asked, looking out the window. "For using me? For humiliating me? Or for not having the courage to admit I was just an accessory?" "You weren't an accessory." "Then what was I?" He didn't answer, and silence filled the space again, heavy and suffocating. Sophia reached for her neck where her grandmother's necklace used to be and felt the emptiness. Then, slowly, she took something out of her bag. It was a small dented sign, hand-painted cardboard, "Art with Soul," the same sign that used to sit on the cart where she sold her paintings on the sidewalk. She held it for a moment, then, without saying a word, placed it on the seat beside Nathaniel. "You can keep that too," she said, her voice flat. "Since you like collecting things that don't belong to you." Nathaniel looked at the sign, then at her. "Sophia, let me out here." "What? Stop the car now." "Sophia, don't stop the car." The driver hit the brakes immediately. Sophia opened the door before the car had even come to a full stop and stepped out, her heels striking the wet pavement. The rain had started. Fine. Cold. The kind that soaks you slowly and doesn't stop. Nathaniel got out too, but she was already walking away. "Where are you going?" "None of your business," she shouted without turning around. He took 2 steps toward her, stopped. Pride and guilt were waging war inside him, and neither was winning. Then, for the second time that night, Nathaniel Ellis did nothing. He just watched her disappear around the corner, swallowed by the night and the rain. Sophia went back to the alley. It was a narrow space between 2 old buildings, where she kept her paintings in a wooden crate covered with a plastic tarp. It wasn't safe. It wasn't ideal, but it was what she had. Or rather, it had been what she had because when she turned the corner and saw the scene, her knees almost gave out. The paintings were on the ground, torn, soaked, destroyed. Blue paint, so vivid it almost looked alive, was splattered across the canvases like scars. Some had footprints on them, others were burned around the edges, and in the middle of it all, written on the brick wall in black paint, "Go back to your place." Sophia stood still, staring at the wreckage. The rain fell harder now, washing away the fresh paint, but not the marks. Then she let out a weak, trembling laugh. "Even the rain wanted to sign one of my works today," she murmured to herself. But the joke didn't help. Nothing did. She knelt among the ruined canvases, picking up broken frame pieces, bits of paintings that had taken her weeks to finish. There was one in particular, a painting of a child holding a paintbrush, staring at a blank canvas with hope in their eyes. It was the first painting she had made after her father died, and now it was in pieces. Sophia pressed the broken frame against her chest, and for the first time since it all began, she truly cried. Not for the humiliation, not for the paintings, not for the necklace, but because for one brief moment she had believed that someone saw her, not as the poor girl on the sidewalk, not as a failed artist, but as someone who mattered. And Nathaniel had destroyed that, not with words, not with actions, but with silence. Across the street, inside the parked limousine, Nathaniel watched. The driver had suggested leaving, but he couldn't. He just sat there watching Sophia kneel among the wreckage, her body trembling, the rain pouring mercilessly. And for the first time in his life, Nathaniel Ellis felt small, not because he had lost something, but because he had destroyed someone. He picked up the little sign she had left on the seat, "Art with Soul," and he understood. Sophia didn't sell paintings. She sold pieces of herself, and he had bought them, used them, and thrown them away. "Sir," the driver said quietly, "what would you like to do?" Nathaniel didn't answer. He just kept staring out the window. And when Sophia finally stood up, holding the pieces she managed to save and disappeared into the night, he realized something. He no longer knew who the villain of that story was. But he had a strong suspicion. That night, at a bar on the other side of town, Benjamin Ellis raised a glass of whiskey and smiled, because the war had only just begun, and he had no intention of losing. Sophia spent 3 days trying to put the pieces back together, literally sitting on the floor of her rented room that smelled like mold and regret. She used tape, white glue, and even chewed gum to try to fix what was left of the paintings. It didn't work because destroyed art doesn't come back. It just becomes something else, like her. On the 4th day, she went back to the alley, not because she wanted to, but because she'd forgotten one last box of paints hidden behind the trash container, the only spot the vandals hadn't found, and that's where he appeared. The man was thin, wearing a wrinkled plaid shirt, faded jeans, and a camera hanging around his neck like it was part of him. He was taking pictures of the wreckage. Sophia stopped, stunned. "Excuse me, are you taking pictures of my personal disaster?" The man turned, startled, almost dropping his camera. "Oh, hi. Sorry, I didn't know anyone was here. I'm with the Charleston Cultural Tribune. My name's Ethan. Ethan Harper." He held out his hand, smiling like he just found gold in a pile of garbage. Sophia didn't shake it. "And what exactly you doing here, Ethan Harper?" "Oh, I write about art vandalism around the city. Like, who does it, why, and what it says about us as a society. It's deep, really deep. It's invasive." "That too," he agreed, still smiling. "But look at this." He pointed at a torn canvas on the ground. "This is art being destroyed. It's meta. It's tragic. It's beautiful." Sophia crossed her arms. "It's my life being destroyed." Ethan froze, and then slowly it hit him. "Wait, you're the artist? Congratulations, Sherlock." He looked at her, then at the wreckage, then back at her, his eyes wide. "Wow, you're like the victim and the artwork at the same time. That's poetic. That's depressing. Also true," he said, pulling a crumpled notepad from his pocket. "Mind if I ask a few questions?" "No, just real quick. Promise?" "No. 5 minutes. Ethan." Sophia sighed, looked up at the sky, asked for patience, which clearly wasn't coming. "Fine. 3 minutes. But if you write anything ridiculous, I'll sue you." "Fair enough," he said, already scribbling. "So, what do you think motivated the vandalism?" Sophia shrugged. "Jealousy? Random hate? Maybe someone who just doesn't like art. Or maybe someone who doesn't like you," Ethan suggested, raising an eyebrow. Sophia paused because he was right. "Yeah," she murmured. "Maybe." Ethan crouched, examining a piece of broken frame. Then he froze. Wait, what?" He turned the frame around, showing her. In the corner, almost faded, was a signature carved into the wood. H. Laurent. Sophia felt her stomach drop. "That's your father's name, isn't it?" Ethan asked, his eyes glowing with that annoying reporter's curiosity. "It was," Sophia said quietly. "He died 5 years ago." Ethan was silent for a moment, then carefully he asked, "Henry Laurent?" Sophia looked up surprised. "How do you know?" "Because I've heard that name before." Then, without another word, Ethan opened the backpack he was carrying and pulled out an old folder stuffed with yellowed newspaper clippings and faded photos. He spread everything out on the ground like a detective setting up a crime scene. "Your father was an art restorer, right?" "He was," Sophia confirmed, kneeling beside him. "He worked for wealthy families here in Charleston, restored old paintings, furniture, even sculptures. And he was fired unfairly." Sophia froze. "How do you know that?" Ethan pointed to one of the clippings. The headline read, "Restorer accused of stealing artwork from Ellis Mansion." Sophia grabbed the paper, her hands trembling. That was a lie. My father never stole anything." "I know," Ethan said, his voice serious now, "because I wrote a story about it 3 years ago, investigating fraud among elite families, and the name Ellis came up more than once." He picked up another clipping. This one showed a photo of Benjamin Ellis at a charity gala, smiling beside an old painting. Benjamin Ellis has a history of, let's say, acquiring art in questionable ways. He accuses someone of theft. The person gets fired, and then, like magic, the piece shows up in his private collection. Sophia felt anger rise inside her like lava. "You're saying he set up my father?" "I'm not just saying it," Ethan replied. "I can prove it. Look at this." He showed her a document, a contract signed by Benjamin Ellis and an art appraiser named Robert Hale, the same man who had verified the theft back then. And in the corner, A handwritten note. Laurent can't know. Close the deal before inventory. Sophia read it, then read it again. And suddenly everything made sense. Benjamin hadn't just destroyed her father's career, he had stolen from him and framed him for it. My father died thinking he was a thief, Sophia whispered, her voice breaking. He died ashamed. Guilty. Ethan gently placed a hand on her shoulder. I'm sorry. Sophia took a deep breath. The tears burned behind her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. Not yet. Great, she said, letting out a bitter laugh. So now I'm famous by accident and for artistic vandalism. Ethan gave her a crooked smile. Something like that. Sophia looked at the clippings, the documents, her father's name engraved on the frame, and something inside her shifted. It wasn't about her anymore. It wasn't about Nathaniel. It wasn't even about the necklace. It was about justice. Ethan, she said, turning to him with a determination she hadn't felt in years. Can you help me? Depends, he replied, tucking the papers away. Help with what? Destroying Benjamin Ellis. Ethan blinked, then smiled. Now you're speaking my language. He held out his hand. Sophia shook it, and as they walked out of the alley, leaving the wreckage behind, one thing was clear. Sophia Laurent was no longer the girl on the sidewalk just trying to survive. She was a woman on a mission, and Benjamin Ellis had no idea what was coming for him. That same night, in a mansion across town, Nathaniel unlocked a drawer in his office. Inside was a folder labeled Henry Laurent, and for the first time, he began to read. The first page of Henry Laurent's file had a photo, a middle-aged man, gray-haired, with a tired but genuine smile holding a paintbrush in front of an old canvas. His eyes were exactly like Sophia's, and Nathaniel felt like he'd been punched in the stomach because he knew that man. Not personally, but he'd heard the name. He'd seen the reports, he'd signed the termination papers. 15 years earlier, when he was just a vice president trying to prove himself, Benjamin had brought him evidence that Henry Laurent was stealing artwork from the Ellis estate, and Nathaniel had believed it without question, without investigation. He had simply believed. Now, as he read through the documents, the forged contracts, the paid testimonies, the impossible dates, he understood Benjamin had set the whole thing up, and Nathaniel had helped destroy an innocent man. And 15 years later, he had destroyed that man's daughter too. He drove to the address the driver had written down, the place where Sophia lived. It was a 3-story building with peeling paint and a rusty metal staircase that groaned with every step. Nathaniel climbed to apartment 2B and knocked on the door. Nothing. He knocked again. Silence. She's gone, said a voice behind him. Nathaniel turned. An older woman stood in the doorway next door, wearing a floral robe and holding an orange cat that looked like it was judging him. Miss Laurent? Nathaniel asked. That's right. She left early yesterday, took a suitcase, and never came back. Do you know where she went? The woman studied him from head to toe. You're the man with the fancy car? Nathaniel hesitated. I am. Then, no, I don't. And if I did, I wouldn't tell you. She shut the door in his face. He checked the alley. Empty. He tried Azalea House, the restaurant where they met. Nothing. He called the only number he had for her. Disconnected. Sophia was gone, and Nathaniel realized too late that she wasn't running from him. She was protecting herself. When he returned to the alley for the 3rd time, he found it. Caught on a nail in the brick wall, swaying slightly in the breeze, was a folded piece of paper. He took it. Opened it. He recognized the handwriting instantly. Those crooked but expressive letters that signed her paintings. Don't keep what you don't understand. Not people, not art. Nathaniel read it 3 times, and then he understood. He had kept Victoria the way someone keeps an expensive piece of art. For status, for image, because everyone expected it, and he had tried to keep Sophia the same way as an experiment, a shield, something he could control. But Sophia wasn't meant to be kept. She was meant to be seen, admired, respected, and he had failed at all 3. When he returned to the mansion, it was nearly midnight. The house was silent, empty, cold. He walked into the office, tossed his keys onto the desk, and that's when he saw it. The necklace, the green glass necklace Sophia had left in the car. It was there on the polished mahogany desk, softly shining under the lamp, and beside it, the crumpled little tag. Art with soul. Nathaniel sat heavily in his chair. He picked up the necklace, feeling its weight in his hand. And for the first time in years, he didn't know what to do. "Sir," came a voice from the door. It was Thomas, the butler, who had worked in the house for 20 years and had watched Nathaniel grow up. "What is it, Thomas?" "Just wanted to ask if you need anything. Tea, coffee, maybe some whiskey to drown your sorrows." Nathaniel almost smiled. "No, thank you." Thomas nodded, but before leaving he paused and said softly, "Looks like the master's been restored on the inside, but still needs a coat of varnish." Nathaniel looked up surprised. "What?" Thomas gave a faint smile. "It's something Miss Sophia would say, I imagine. She had a way with words." Has Nathaniel corrected him? "She has a way with words." "Of course, sir. My mistake." And he left, closing the door behind him, leaving Nathaniel alone with the ghosts of his own conscience. It was 2:00 the morning when Benjamin showed up. He didn't knock. He just walked in as if the mansion belonged to him, too. "I thought you'd be asleep," he said, pouring himself a drink from the decanter without asking. "What do you want, Benjamin?" "Came to see how you're holding up." "Rough night, huh? Your date getting thrown out for stealing." "Awkward." Nathaniel tightened his grip on the necklace. "She didn't steal anything." Benjamin laughed. "Of course she did. Everyone saw it. The necklace was from the Ellis collection." "It wasn't," Nathaniel said, his voice dangerously calm. "It belonged to her grandmother. She worked for our family. It was a gift." Benjamin froze, his glass halfway to his mouth. "You can't prove that." Nathaniel opened the desk drawer, pulled out a folder, and threw it in front of him. "I can." Benjamin looked at the folder, then at Nathaniel. The smile disappeared. "What is this?" "Evidence, forged contracts, paid-off witnesses, security footage of you ordering Sophia's paintings to be vandalized. Everything I need to destroy you." Benjamin went pale. "You won't do it." "Why not?" "Because we're family. Because this will ruin the Ellis name. Because I care more about the company's reputation than the truth." Nathaniel stood, eyes locked on his cousin. "You're right, I used to care." Benjamin slammed the glass down on the desk. "If you do this, I'll take you down with me. The press will love hearing how the CEO of Ellis Enterprises helped ruin an innocent man 15 years ago." "I know," Nathaniel said calmly, "and I'll own it, because unlike you, I still have something worth saving." "Oh yeah. And what's that?" "My humanity." The silence that followed was heavy, thick. Benjamin picked up the folder, looked at him, and slowly smiled. "You're doing this for her, aren't you? The beggar woman." Nathaniel didn't answer. Benjamin laughed low and cruel. "How pathetic. Get out of my house, Benjamin." "With pleasure." He walked to the door, stopped, turned. "But just so you know, she's gone, isn't she? So, even if you clear her name, even if you destroy me, she won't come back because in the end, you chose the wrong side." And he left, slamming the door. Nathaniel stayed in the office. The house felt larger than ever, emptier, colder. He looked around. The expensive furniture, the old paintings, the Persian rugs, everything flawless, everything perfect, everything hollow. And he realized Sophia had been right. He didn't understand anything. Not art, not people, not himself. But maybe there was still time to learn. The next morning, an envelope was delivered to the Charleston Cultural Tribune. Inside were documents, photos, contracts, and a letter signed by Nathaniel Ellis. Ethan Harper opened it, read it, and smiled. "Sophia," he called, "you need to see this." Sophia looked down at the papers spread across Ethan's desk as if they were pieces of a crime scene, because technically they were. Forged contracts, deleted but recovered emails, suspicious bank transfers, and a letter signed by Nathaniel Ellis confessing everything. "He sent this to me," Ethan said, sliding the papers toward her. "Everything we need to prove your father was innocent, that Benjamin set him up." Sophia picked up the letter, reading it slowly, and she felt something strange in her chest. Not relief, not gratitude, confusion. "Why did he do this?" she asked quietly. Ethan shrugged. "Guilt, redemption, unreturned love." Sophia gave him a look. "It's not love." "Of course not," Ethan agreed, smiling. "But it would make a great headline." She rolled her eyes and kept reading the documents. And that's when she saw it. Nathaniel hadn't just sent proof, he had sent a plan, and that plan involved a charity auction at Grove Mansion, the same place where she had been humiliated. "He's crazy," she murmured. Maybe, Ethan said, but it's the kind of crazy that sells newspapers. While Sophia processed everything in the newsroom on the other side of the city, Nathaniel was in the basement of Ellis Enterprises doing something he never imagined he would do, breaking into his own archives. Technically, it wasn't breaking in. He was the CEO. He had access to everything, but going in there at 3:00 the morning with a flashlight and a master key stolen from the secretary's safe definitely felt like a crime. This is ridiculous, he muttered to himself, opening the third drawer of a dusty file cabinet that probably no one had opened since 2010. He was looking for one specific thing, the original inventory records from the Ellis mansion 15 years ago. Because if Benjamin had framed Henry Laurent, the proof would be there, hidden but there. Nathaniel searched for 2 hours. He found old contracts, restoration invoices, auction receipts, and then at the back of the last drawer, under a pile of yellow documents, he found it, a folder with the label torn, but you could still read Inventory 2010 Restored Works. He opened it and froze, because there in black and white was the complete list of works Henry Laurent had restored, and next to each one, the signature of the appraiser responsible, Robert Hale, the same man who had confirmed the theft, and at the bottom, handwritten in a script Nathaniel knew well, closed before Laurent notices the diversion. B.W., Benjamin Ellis. Nathaniel felt anger rise like fire because it wasn't just a scheme. It was premeditated, planned, cruel, and he had fallen for it like a fool. He took photos of everything with his phone, tucked the folder under his arm, and left the basement like a thief in his own company. But when he reached the elevator, he realized there was a problem. He wasn't alone. The board meeting the next morning was, to say the least, tense. Benjamin was there, smiling as always, sitting at the end of the table as if he owned the place. Victoria was there too, as an outside consultant invited by her cousin, which was ridiculous, but no one had the nerve to question it. And Nathaniel was in the middle with a flash drive in his pocket and sweat running down his forehead. "So, Nate," Benjamin began, far too casual, "do you have any updates on the internal audit?" Nathaniel cleared his throat. "I do. In fact, I brought some interesting documents." He stood, plugged the flash drive into the projector, and turned it on. The first image was the forged 2010 contract. The room fell silent. As you can see, Nathaniel began trying to sound professional. There are inconsistencies in the Ellis Mansion's inventory records, specifically related to... He tripped over the projector cable. The screen went dark. "Damn," he muttered, trying to turn it back on. Benjamin let out a low laugh. "Spy mode turned off, cousin." A few people laughed. Nathaniel felt his face heat up. "Just a second," he said, fiddling with the cables as if he knew what he was doing. Spoiler, he didn't. After 3 awkward minutes, the secretary walked in and fixed everything in 5 seconds. "Thank you, Karen," Nathaniel murmured. "You're welcome, Mr. Ellis." He took a deep breath and continued. "As I was saying, there's evidence that works were diverted and an innocent employee was blamed." The images started to roll. Contracts, emails, transfers, and then the last image, a security camera recording dated a week ago, showing 2 men walking into the alley where Sophia kept the paintings and destroying everything. "The building next door, security cameras caught it all," Nathaniel explained. "The men were hired by a general services company registered under the name Benjamin Ellis." The room erupted in murmurs. Benjamin stood, his face red. "This is ridiculous. You're making this up to frame me." "No," Nathaniel replied calmly. "I'm exposing what you did." Victoria stood too, her eyes flashing with anger. "You can't do this, Nathaniel. This will destroy the company." "No," he corrected. "This will save it because for the first time, we're going to act with integrity." He turned off the projector, looked around the table. "I'm going to organize a charity auction at the Grove Mansion in 2 weeks, and there I'll present this evidence publicly along with a formal apology to the Laurent family." "You've lost your mind," Benjamin hissed. "Maybe," Nathaniel agreed, "but it's the right thing to do." And he walked out of the room, leaving chaos behind. That night, Nathaniel came home and found Thomas waiting at the door. "Sir, Mr. Benjamin was here. He took some things from the office." Nathaniel ran to the office. The drawer was open, empty. The original folder was gone. "Damn," he muttered, running a hand through his hair. But then he looked at the computer and remembered. He had backed up everything and sent it to Ethan Harper. Benjamin could destroy the original, but the truth was already out there, and there was no turning back. Across town, Benjamin held the folder over a burning fireplace. Victoria stood beside him, arms crossed. "Burn it," she said coldly. Benjamin hesitated. "If I burn this, we lose any chance to negotiate. And if you don't burn it, we lose everything." He looked at the folder, then at the fire and threw it in. The flames swallowed the papers in seconds. But what they didn't know was that Nathaniel had already won, because the truth doesn't need paper to exist. It only needs someone brave enough to tell it. And Nathaniel had finally found that courage. The ballroom at the Grove Mansion had never looked so bright. Freshly polished chandeliers, white flowers on every table, and a line of luxury cars at the entrance that looked like a New York Fashion Week parade. Everyone was there. The Charleston elite, the names that mattered, the faces that appeared in magazines, and they had all come for the same reason, to attend the most anticipated charity auction of the year, hosted by Nathaniel Ellis, in the name of restoration and social justice. What no one knew was that restoration had a much more literal meaning than they imagined. Victoria was glowing, a gold dress that shimmered under the lights like a living trophy. Perfect hair, a smile fixed on her face like it had been painted there. She stood on stage beside Benjamin, greeting guests, posing for photos, acting as if she were the official hostess of the event. And technically, she was, because Nathaniel had asked her and Benjamin to help with the organization, as a gesture of goodwill, a family reconciliation, or at least that's what they thought. "Thank you all for being here tonight," Victoria said into the microphone, her voice sweet as poisoned honey. "We're gathered here to celebrate art, culture, and the Ellis family's commitment to the Charleston community." Polite applause filled the room. Benjamin smiled beside her, hands in his pockets, confident, because he thought he had won, that he had destroyed the evidence that Nathaniel had given up. But then the lights flickered and changed. A side door opened and Sophia walked in, not in a ball gown, not in high heels, but in jeans, a simple white blouse, and worn-out boots. And in her hands she carried a canvas, a painting. The painting of the estate Nathaniel had bought from her months earlier, the first one, only now it was different, restored. But the scars of the vandalism were still there, tears stitched together with golden thread. Stains of paint blended into the landscape as part of its story. Kintsugi, the Japanese art of mending what's broken with gold. Only this was the Sophia Laurent version. The entire room turned toward her. The murmurs began to ripple through the crowd. Who is she? Isn't that the girl from the engagement scandal? What is she doing here? Victoria froze on stage. Her smile vanished. Benjamin stepped forward, eyes narrowing. "What are you doing here?" He practically spat. Sophia stopped in the middle of the room. She set the painting on an empty easel that had been conveniently placed there, courtesy of Ethan Harper, who was filming everything discreetly from the back. Then she looked directly at Victoria. "Hi, sweetheart. I came to take back what's mine." "This is trespassing," Victoria said, her voice shaking. "Security!" But before anyone could move, Nathaniel stepped onto the stage, not running, not panicking, calm, controlled, like a man who knew exactly what he was doing. "Actually," he said, taking the microphone from Victoria's hand, "she was invited by me." The room erupted in louder murmurs. Benjamin stepped forward. "What are you doing, Nathaniel?" "What I should have done 15 years ago," he replied, locking eyes with his cousin. "The right thing." Then, with a gesture, the lights in the ballroom went out, and the projector turned on. The first image was a contract fake, dated 2010, with Benjamin Ellis's forged signature next to Henry Laurent's name. "This is the contract used to accuse Henry Laurent of theft," Nathaniel explained, his voice echoing through the room. "An innocent man, a brilliant restorer destroyed by a lie." Next slide. Bank transfers from Benjamin Ellis to Robert Hale, the appraiser who had confirmed the theft. And this is proof that everything was bought, planned, executed. More slides, deleted emails, handwritten notes, security footage showing men destroying Sophia's paintings in the alley. Each image hit like a bomb, and the ballroom was in absolute shock. Benjamin tried to shut off the projector. Nathaniel blocked his way. "Get out of my way," Benjamin hissed. "No." Victoria stepped off the stage, trying to slip away. But Ethan appeared by the door, still filming. "I didn't do anything," she shouted, desperate. "It was all Benjamin. I didn't know about any of it." "That's a lie," said Sophia, her voice calm but sharp. "You knew. You always knew. And you chose his side because it was convenient." Victoria glared at her with pure hatred. "You're nothing but a— Careful." Sophia cut in, smiling. "Your words are being recorded and you're already not having a great day, sweetheart." Someone in the back laughed, then another, and Victoria realized too late that she'd lost. "Looks like the tables have turned, huh?" Sophia said, tilting her head, and the room erupted. Half applauded. The other half stood in stunned silence, but everyone understood one thing. The truth had won. 2 security guards, real ones this time, not the ones Benjamin had bought, entered the room with 2 Charleston police detectives. "Benjamin Ellis," one of them called, flashing a badge. Benjamin stepped back. "You can't arrest me. You've got nothing that'll hold up in court." "Actually," said the detective, holding up a warrant, "we have enough evidence for fraud, document forgery, and destruction of private property. So yes, we can." And as they led Benjamin away in handcuffs, he yelled at Victoria, "Get me out of here. Pay my bail." But Victoria was already gone, slipping out the back door, because in the end, she always chose herself. When the room finally started to empty, Sophia stood before the restored painting. Nathaniel walked up slowly. "You came?" he said softly. "Ethan convinced me," she replied, still looking at the painting. "He said I needed to see this, that you'd done something unexpected." "And what did you think?" Sophia finally looked at him. "I think you took too long, but at least you did it." He smiled, sad but hopeful. "I'm sorry for everything. I know. And I was wondering if you'd give me a chance to fix this for real this time." Sophia looked at him for a long moment, then slowly she pointed to the painting. "You see these scars?" she asked. "They don't disappear, but now they're part of the piece, and in a way, they make it more beautiful." Nathaniel understood. "So, can we try again?" Sophia didn't answer right away, but then to his surprise, she held out her hand. "We can. But this time, no lies, no games, no silence." He took her hand. "No silence." And for the first time in weeks, they both smiled. For real. Outside, Victoria got into a taxi and called an unknown number. "I need to get out of town now," and she disappeared into the night. But what she didn't know was that the story was only beginning because Nathaniel still had one more surprise, and this time Sophia was going to love it. Nathaniel Ellis had faced shareholder boards, hostile negotiations, even a federal lawsuit, but he'd never been nervous in front of a neighborhood cafe door, until now. He looked through the foggy window. Inside, sitting at a corner table, Sophia was sketching something on a paper napkin. Her hair was tied in a messy ponytail. Her shirt had paint stains, and she was chewing on the end of her pen like she was solving an impossible math problem. And Nathaniel realized in that exact moment that he was completely in love, which was a problem because he had absolutely no idea what to do about it. So, he took a deep breath, adjusted the package under his arm, and walked in. The bell over the door rang. Sophia looked up and froze. "Hi," said Nathaniel, stopping a few steps from the table. "Hi," she replied slowly, as if testing the word. "May I sit?" Sophia looked at him, then at the empty chair, then back at him. "Depends. Did you come to apologize again, or is there something new in the script?" Nathaniel almost smiled. "Something new? Okay, then sit." He sat down and placed the package on the table. Sophia eyed him suspiciously. "If that's an expensive dress and a note saying, 'Be someone else,' I'm throwing hot coffee in your face." "It's not," Nathaniel assured her. "Open it." She hesitated, then slowly unwrapped the brown paper. Inside was a set of paintbrushes, new, high quality, the kind real artists use, not the kind from craft stores. And beside them, a simple wooden frame, empty. Sophia picked it up, turned it over, and saw something carved into the back. For Sophia, who restores what others break. She stayed silent for a long moment. "You carved this?" she asked, her voice softer than she meant. "I tried. It's a little crooked. It's perfect." Nathaniel smiled. A small, genuine smile. "I was going to bring you flowers," he said. "But then I thought, flowers die, and you deserve something that lasts." Sophia held the frame as if it were the most precious thing in the world. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, looking into his eyes. Because you restored more than a painting, Nathaniel said, his voice steady but soft. You restored what was left of me. Sophia blinked. Once, twice. Then, to his surprise, she started laughing. Not a mocking laugh, but a nervous one. The kind that slips out when you're not sure whether to cry or hug someone. Wow, she said, wiping her eyes. You just used a restoration metaphor in an apology. That's ridiculously corny. I know, and I kind of loved it. Nathaniel relaxed. For the first time since he'd walked in, he felt like maybe he had a chance. So, can we try for real this time? Sophia opened her mouth to answer and was interrupted by a voice far too cheerful for 8 inches the morning. Good morning, lovebirds. They both turned. The waiter, a man in his 52nds with a gray mustache and a coffee-stained apron, stood beside the table with a grin that was way too wide. You two want coffee, toast, or are we skipping straight to the happy ending? Sophia almost spit out her coffee. I'm sorry, what? She asked, trying not to laugh. Oh, relax, sweetheart, the waiter said, winking. I've worked here 20 years. I know a romantic apology when I see one. So, tell me, table for 2 or happy ending? Nathaniel turned red. Sophia burst into laughter, and the waiter stood there waiting for an answer as if hosting a game show. 2 coffees, Nathaniel managed to say, trying to regain composure. And maybe some toast. Maybe, the waiter repeated dramatically. Son, you need more confidence. She's already laughing. You've won. He walked off, whistling a romantic tune from the 82nds. Sophia wiped the tears from laughing so hard. I love this place. Nathaniel sighed, but he was smiling. Are you always going to embarrass me? Probably, she said, picking up one of the new paintbrushes and twirling it between her fingers. But only because you deserve it. He didn't argue. Then silence returned. But it was different now. Not the heavy silence of the past, the comfortable kind. The one that exists between people who really understand each other. Until Sophia broke it. I'm scared, she admitted softly. Nathaniel frowned. Of what? Of believing again. Of trusting. Of. She paused, searching for words. Of loving, because love is scarier than loneliness. He stayed quiet, letting the words settle. Why? He asked gently. Because I know loneliness. I know how to survive it. But love? Sophia looked at the empty frame. Love is risky. It's giving pieces of yourself to someone and hoping they don't break them. Nathaniel reached his hand across the table slowly, giving her time to decide. What if I promise not to break them? You can't promise that, Sophia said, but placed her hand on his anyway. No one can. We always hurt the people we love, even without meaning to. Then we learn to restore, Nathaniel replied, holding her hand together with golden scars and all. Human kintsugi. Exactly. She looked at his hand over hers, feeling the warmth, the steadiness, the quiet promise. Then slowly she nodded. All right, let's try. But slowly, no pressure, no big expectations. No big expectations, he repeated. Just morning coffee. Morning coffee sounds good. The waiter returned with their coffees and a slice of toast no one had ordered. But that came with a little heart drawn in jam on the plate. On the house, he said, winking again. Sophia rolled her eyes but was smiling. And as the two of them shared the toast and talked about everything and nothing, about art, about future plans, about how Nathaniel had burned his first attempt at gilding the frame, one thing became clear. They weren't ready, but they were willing, and sometimes that's all that matters. Across the street, hidden behind a car, Victoria watched through the cafe window, her eyes narrowed, her phone in her hand typing a single message. They're together, time for Plan B. And as she pressed send, a cold, calculated smile spread across her face. Because if she couldn't have Nathaniel, no one could. Victoria hit send and waited. The reply came seconds later. Received. Operation starting. She smiled, slipped the phone into her purse, and walked away from the shadows. But what Victoria didn't know was that across the street, Ethan Harper was also watching. Camera on, recording everything, and when she turned the corner, he sent the video to Nathaniel with a single message. She still hasn't learned, but we have. Victoria's Plan B canceled before it even began because this time they were ready. 1 year later, the Grove Mansion ballroom was unrecognizable, not because it had changed, but because what was happening inside was completely different. Instead of tables divided by family names and social status, there were round tables decorated with paintings made by children. Instead of expensive flowers, there were vases with simple, colorful sunflowers. And instead of a tense, competitive atmosphere, there was laughter. Lots of laughter. Because this was not an elite gala. It was the first charity ball of the Laurent Foundation, created by Sophia and Nathaniel to support street artists, independent restorers, and anyone who believed art had no price, only value. And it was full. Sophia stood in the center of the hall talking with a group of teenagers who took part in the foundation's mentoring program. She wore a light pale blue dress that floated as she moved. Her hair was tied with a hand-painted colorful scarf, a gift from one of the kids. She was the same woman from the sidewalk, only now radiant. "So, Sophia," one of the girls asked shyly, "is it true you used to sell art on the street before all this?" Sophia smiled. "True, right there in front of the azalea house with an old cart and a sign that said, 'Art with Soul.' And Nathaniel bought one of your paintings." "He did, and he stepped in a can of blue paint in the process." The kids laughed. "So now, are you like together?" Sophia looked to the other side of the room where Nathaniel was trying and failing miserably to teach a group of children how to waltz. A 7-year-old girl was literally stepping on his feet with every move. "Sorry, Mr. Ellis," she laughed. "It's okay, Emma," Nathaniel answered, trying not to limp. "You're doing fine. Just try to step on the floor between my feet, not on top of them." "I'm trying. I know. But my toes are trying to survive too." The whole room laughed. Sophia rolled her eyes, but she was smiling. "Yeah," she said, looking back at the girls. "We're together, and he's terrible at dancing with kids." "But does he love you?" Sophia paused. Then she nodded slowly. "He does in his awkward way, but he does." And the girls sighed as if they were watching a romantic movie. When it was time for the speech, Sophia went up on stage. The room fell silent. Every seat was taken. Artists, families, children, and even some members of Charleston's old elite, who had learned their lesson. Sophia held the microphone. She took a deep breath. "Hi," she began, her voice firmer than she expected. "I'm not good at speeches, so I'll be direct." Low laughter. "A year ago, I was on the sidewalk. No money, no hope, thinking nobody cared about real art, only about expensive art." She paused and looked around. "But I was wrong, because real art has no price. It has soul. And you," she pointed to the audience. "You proved that. Each of you who came tonight, who donated, who believed, you proved that elegance is not about how much you spend." Sophia lifted her chin, her eyes shining. "Elegance is respect, not price." The room exploded into applause. People stood up. Some cried, others smiled. And in the back, the foundation's children began to imitate the dance Nathaniel and Sophia had practiced, purposely stepping on each other's feet and laughing out loud. And Sophia realized that this was the most beautiful moment of her life, not because it was perfect, but because it was real. It was in the middle of the party that she appeared, Victoria. But she wasn't the Victoria from before. There was no gold dress, no flawless makeup, just a simple beige dress and hair pulled back in a basic ponytail. She stood at the entrance, hesitant, as if she didn't know whether to go in. Sophia saw her first and froze. Nathaniel appeared at her side, following her gaze. "Do you want me to ask her to leave?" he asked quietly. Sophia was silent for a moment, then slowly shook her head. "No, let her stay." She crossed the hall toward Victoria. The two stood face to face, saying nothing for a long moment, until Victoria spoke, her voice breaking. "I'm sorry." Sophia did not answer right away. She just looked at her. "Are you sorry, or are you just feeling sorry for yourself?" Victoria lowered her eyes. "Both, probably. At least you're honest." "I lost everything," Victoria went on. "The engagement, my reputation. Benjamin's in jail, and I have no one." Sophia crossed her arms. "And you think I'm going to hug you and say it's okay?" "No," Victoria replied, finally meeting her eyes. "I just wanted you to know that. I understand now what you felt, what you went through." Sophia was quiet. Then, surprisingly, she held out her hand. "You can stay, but if you try anything, I'll paint you as the villain in all my next canvases." Victoria almost smiled. "Fair." And she shook her hand. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. At the end of the night, when most people had already left, Sophia stood in front of a painting displayed on the main wall. It was her father's work, restored, complete, and beneath it, a small golden plaque read, Henry Laurent, restorer, artist, father. Now it's truly complete. Nathaniel appeared beside her, silent. He would be proud, he said softly. Sophia wiped away a tear that had slipped down her cheek. Art always finds its way back to those who never gave up, she whispered, touching the frame. Then turning to Nathaniel, she smiled. Thank you for believing, for restoring, for everything. He took her hand. Thank you for teaching me that some things are worth more than money. Like what? Like you. Sophia rolled her eyes, but laughed. You're still corny, and you're still perfect. They stood there side by side before the painting, surrounded by works of art created by children who now had hope. And they realized that this was the true masterpiece. Not the painting, not the hall, not the money, but the kind of love that restores, that heals, that turns scars into gold. Outside, under Charleston's starry sky, Thomas the butler watched through the window and smiled. Looks like the boss finally learned his lesson, he murmured to himself. Then he closed the door, leaving the two of them alone, because some stories don't need witnesses, only happy endings. But behind the scenes, Ethan Harper was already typing up his next article. From homeless to humanitarian, the true story of Sophia Laurent. And something told him this story was only just beginning. And that's how the story of Sophia and Nathaniel ends. The woman from the sidewalk who restored not just paintings, but broken hearts.